Hey everyone, welcome to the White Coat Syndicator, where we help dentists, physicians, and busy professionals learn about passively investing into real estate. And today we have a special treat. We've got Travis Prim on the line. He's a full-time software engineer and budding real estate investor. So Travis, can you share a little bit about yourself, your journey so far?
Yeah, thank you for that introduction. Yeah, so about 3 years ago is when I bought my first property down in Austin, Texas. Bought as a primary while I was still working full time as real estate right before everyone kind of started getting the advantage to go remote. And put in an offer, got it under contract, and then had it build out while I was still getting a job over there. And that was kind of the bug where I was able to leave California, where I'd been kind of studying, doing a lot of research, doing a lot of practice, and running numbers and just analysis, and building up that muscle of really being able to analyze property. So that's kind of how I got started. But like you said, I'm doing software engineering full time, and yeah, just loving real estate. I think that's kind of why I've dove deeper into it. Is I just really passionate about everything about it and the people that are involved with it.
Sweet, man. So, I know that you were talking about you were underwriting it, analyzing the numbers, and I know a lot of people like they're kind of scared of that stuff, but you as an engineer, I'm sure that was like second nature. So I
Yeah.
guess how did you find out about how to underwrite and even know what underwriting was?
Yeah, so I think underwriting it sounds intimidating, but it's really just running numbers and actually running detailed numbers. So there's a bunch of resources out there at this point where you can kind of get an introduction into, hey, where do you find rent? Where should rent be in my neighborhood? Where should I figure out costs? How do I take a monthly cost? Like you don't need to talk to a lender. Like you can just Google mortgage calculator, type in how much property tax, figure out how to look up property tax. All this stuff's public information, and there's even resources that have existing calculators out there for you. Like you said, being an engineer, I was tinkered and made my own Google sheet. Not necessary, but it definitely helped me understand the process a lot more. It was 1 or 2 nights of really just nerding out over numbers. But yeah, after that, I think there's doing that where you have the actual big concepts, and then there's the idea of being able to go in and say, hey, how much does Windows cost, right? That's a little bit more abstract and detailed to your neighborhood. And so for that, I was getting involved with investors locally, being able to provide them being able to provide them a value as well because they knew I was a serious investor, right? A lot of people come up and they just say, hey, get a local real estate agent who is friendly to you, and they just ask them, bombard them a ton of questions. But you'll also find that you might have traction getting an agent's attention if you don't build that rapport with them, right? So, if you're talking to a high paid software engineer who is already running numbers and they're just asking you for how much Windows costs, like a bell should go off in that agent's head that this person's serious. So, it's being able to have that confidence all around, and then those agents locally just helped me figure it out. So I'd walk properties with them. I'd actually watch some old YouTubers where they would actually walk properties and say like, this is what our renovation was, and I would try to predict it before them. So I probably knew like California prices is better than Texas prices originally because I would just follow along with these YouTubers, and instead of trying to just say, hey, let me just listen to them, I was trying to predict them, just 5 seconds into the video. Yeah. So
Awesome, man. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, you're speaking about confidence. You're out talking to brokers, like different realtors, people who are actually in the market trying to sell properties. I guess overall, in terms of confidence, like how did you gain confidence enough to actually, put out your offers? How did you get enough confidence, like in your numbers, that you were like, hey, that seems like a good deal. I gotta go chase it now. Like, well, what gave you the confidence?
Yeah, so I think there's definitely a couple that Vivian James and Austin will shout out to them, but they're my heroes that help me jump off that cliff. They were the investor friendly agent that I was working with, and they don't take on a lot of clients because they invest themselves, so they spend most of their time doing their own investments. So got to build up a lot of trust with them as well, but really. I would run numbers, show it to him. I wouldn't ask him for numbers or what do you think on this house. It's like I'd have a whole sheet and say like, this is what I expect out of here. Does this make any sense? And he'd take 2 seconds to look at it and just be like, yeah, it looks good. Because they were operating so much in that area, they knew it just from looking at it. They're like, this is what it will be like in the next 5 years. They kind of didn't even need a sheet.
Mm.
So being able to do that, we went around and we actually looked for specific criterias in houses. I call
Mhm.
it well, there's like a certain type of yellow, white, off-white that was really popular in the late 90s and early 2000s. It's
Okay.
it's kind of what white looks like if you just don't clean it ever. And it looks really gross and it makes houses look dirty. So I would actually specifically target those houses because I knew people wouldn't want to buy them. And any investor knows paint is probably the easiest thing, but the most like impactful for a non-investor buyer. So yeah, we just literally queued in on that. We found two houses, made one offer, didn't hear anything back, and then just went on, made a second offer, and they said yes.
Mhm.
That was it. So that was the second property I got where that one had to do some renovation in that one as well, some light renovation, no structural or permits.
Cool, man. Yeah, and I know how cheesy it is. You know, your network is your net worth, right? Like in real estate, you have to know people. You have to get out there, get outside your comfort zone, like, talk to people, right? So for
Right.
these agents, like specifically, they're investor agents. Like I guess how did you get in contact with them?
Well, I met like I said, it was a couple, and so I met the non-agent, that couple in the company I was working at. They had an investment real estate group,
Oh,
so
awesome.
she was pretty active in that, friendly, and then she, you be respectful, and someone will probably pay attention. People in this industry, or not, I don't know if it's industry, but people in real estate investing love talking about real estate investing. And if you are curious and respectful and genuine, like like you're putting the effort in, people can tell that immediately.
Mhm.
A lot of people, you'll say like, oh, this person's, you're a really smart software engineer, you don't need to run numbers. But if I wasn't actually running numbers, I can tell that. As someone who's been doing this, I can tell that almost immediately. Or if you're running numbers and you're just excluding capex, or you're not taking into account property management and you're out of state, it's like we look at these things and I can make any property look good to you if you want me to lie, but I don't think you'll be as happy on the other side if that's not how your numbers turn out.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
for our listeners to, I know some of us may not be as a real estate savvy. What exactly is CapEx, Travis?
Yeah, so CapEx is shorthand for capital expenses. That's going to try to account for some of these longer term repairs and damages to your house that you would want to save for over time, but not necessarily be paying. So a good example of this is like a roof. A roof you're probably going to replace every, 10, 15 years, depending on where you live. That's not going to cost, you can't pay for that a couple $100 every month, right? But if you spread that 10,000, say it's $15,000 to replace your whole roof, you spread that out over, say, 15 years of the roof, it's $1,000 a year. You can account for that, so you should be accounting for $80 a month for your roof, right?
Mhm.
And so there's a rule of thumb a lot of people will use, and I personally use, is 1% of the property value to estimate capex per year.
Mhm.
And yeah, that'll hopefully replace your flooring, a door that breaks, or a window, or all those acts of God that end up bringing a tree down on your house or
Definitely,
something.
man. Yeah. So for all the aspiring real estate investors out there, definitely a lot more in terms of underwriting or analyzing the property that there is to look out for. So definitely, it's always advantageous to meet people who actually are investing and people who actually have been steps ahead of you before you actually underwrite, before you actually start going out on your own and doing some deals. So always a good idea to network, definitely. And
Yeah.
so Travis, you were saying like even at work, you guys had a real estate investing like club or
Yeah. So I worked at one of the big Fang or main company. I don't know what it's called now. One of the Fang companies. So they're people that are pretty active about it, and yeah, they would just have meetings once a month, where we would just get together, and a lot of times there'd be presentations or people talking about it. But you'd be able to just kind of drill down and even say like, hey, and in Austin, like, where's the real estate investment group in Austin? So, the number one way I always get to people, which I highly recommend to everybody, is pay for someone's lunch.
Mhm.
A lot of important people will do something for a free meal, so definitely do that. And most people like food, so take them somewhere good, and then I'll get them happier, and again, help everybody win. So yeah, I think that really helped out a lot, but you don't always need that. You know, there's almost always going to be an investor group around you. You can check all sorts of socials or podcasts or forums and just start poking around, be like, "Hey, I'm in Austin," or "Hey, I'm in Nashville or Atlanta. I'm trying to meet more people. I have no idea what I'm doing." And just keep going, you know. Like there people love talking about this. I mean, people will not stop most of the time. So, yeah.
It's like we try to put the brakes on it, they keep going, right?
Yeah, my wife actually doesn't is not intrigued by real estate at all. So it's a running joke where it's like she knows I'm trying not to talk about real estate with other real estate people in front of her,
Mhm.
and we met another couple, and you know me and the other guy who is in the real estate as well. We're like we made it 70% of the way through dinner with no real estate, and then his wife just like walked off and went back into the house, and it's like
Hilarious.
we're sorry, we know we have a problem, but we love talking about it.
You know, it's I would like I mean I would pose it as, hey, real estate, that's a good addiction to have, right? At least real estate will get us out of whatever we want to do, not put us into some new problems.
Right, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So Travis, at this point, can you tell us about your portfolio? What the plan is from here? Well, where you want to go, what you want to achieve with it?
Yeah, yeah. So my portfolio right now is four properties in North Austin, all single family homes. And then I have one pre-construction under contract in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Awesome.
Um, and so they're all based for long-term rentals. Three of the four were actually new construction out of Austin.
Cool.
And, you know, I think that that's a very different strategy. And I think it's really, I was really excited to share my story on this podcast specifically because I was doing that strategy because I was having a demanding job,
Mhm.
right? I mentioned that one house I did with the renovation. That's the one of the four. The other three were all new construction. And
Mhm.
so, you know, if we're on here, we're talking about people who are high income earners, people who have that capital or that cash flow, hopefully to be able to help them or be able to save up enough to be able to put another deposit down quite quickly.
Mhm.
And so what I was doing is I was just getting new builds under contract just whenever I can. And, you know, the deposits in Austin used to be 500, 2,000.
Mhm.
And if you gave Austin 6 months to appreciate,
Mhm.
you can just see, hey, did I make my $2,000 back? If
Right.
not, just cut it loose, just
Mhm.
cut it gone and run. And that never happened because it's Austin so far for the last 3 years. Oh, I should also mention that first home purchase was about 3 years ago as well. So I've gone from zero to about five properties in about 3 years.
Right.
And I think I only leveraged out the first property to pay for the apartment in Hawaii. So we can talk about that later. But yeah, that was kind of my strategy, and I really enjoyed it because it also made landlording extremely easy, right? If anyone's not built new construction before, you'll typically get a builder's warranty for the first year, maybe two, or end to end. So they'll cover literally anything. And at that point, you as a landlord, I get a call that says, "Hey, this sink has a leak in it." Cool. I go call the warranty people. I don't even get up.
Hmm.
I don't even get out of my chair. The warranty people come over.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that. I was gonna ask, 'cause I know that we know the advantages of getting a new build, but I guess if you had to put it into 5 points, why, what is the advantage of you having a new property versus renovating an existing one?
Yeah. So a couple points definitely would be initial upfront costs, right? Like I said, deposit, you kind of know about 6 months in
Mhm.
ahead of the actual purchase, like what is your actual value to get into the game
Mhm.
versus you kind of compare that to earnest money on a resale and you know that that's going to happen in the next 30 to 45 days most likely to close.
Mhm.
Resale, you'll have to expect more capex. So when I do capex for my new builds, I only do it at 1/4%. And you know, some people say that's pretty risky, but literally the builder will fix everything that first year. And I do that mostly to make sure I'm not buying a poor property, right? If I'm not buying a property that can run at 1% capex in the near future, then I'm probably just starry-eyed about how good I think this property will be. It's
Mhm.
and you know, I think the other one would, yeah, you just got to expect to be there a little bit more, and you have to be a little bit more flexible. And I would say you'd also want to be a little bit more involved if you're doing a resale. Uh, the only maintenance call I've ever had to go on was the one resale house. So I guess that's 100% of my calls. But that was because an HVAC line, a condenser line backed up. And for property managers, they know that happens all the time. So for the renovated house, for the AC condenser line, it got backed up. That's something that happens regularly. It's not a spooky thing. It's going to happen on new homes, old homes, doesn't matter.
Mhm.
And it was, you will see those and get that experience more. If that experience doesn't excite you, then you should pay for that with a property manager, right? I have been doing property management on all my properties because I want to keep that extra 10%. And that new build actually allows that more. So relative to a resale where if I wasn't excited about it, I have to pay that extra 10%, which is a high likelihood for people who are, running around with high demanding jobs. You can take that as the resale side where you do another 10% to property management, or you can do new build and kind of expect that property management, at least for the first year, do it yourself, see if you even like it.
Mhm.
Maybe you do like it. I kind of like it because I like tinkering, right? We're software engineer. I like tinkering and figure out how things work. So I actually kind of enjoy it. But on the new build side, you could say no property management, run it yourself, and you don't really have to worry about getting your hands dirty neither. So there are pros and cons to both. I mean, the new build will probably cost more as well because people like brand new things. So
Yeah, I see.
yeah,
Makes sense. And I
yeah,
know you mentioned it earlier. You're talking about leveraging a house for a new build in Hawaii. Man,
yeah,
I'm a little bit curious. I'm sure that listeners are curious. You want to share us? I want to walk us through that real quick.
yeah. So this was a pro tactic, I guess. First one, I felt like I was a real estate investor, but where it was that first house in we got that in 20. We got that under contract, I should say, in 2019 November, right? So right before anything with COVID or any COVID even existed, and then it closed June 2020. So then we got the low interest rate as well, which was phenomenal. Total luck. There's no skill in that. You can't predict. I didn't predict COVID would happen,
Mhm.
but what happened there, right? Prices shot up. Austin became a very hot city. Prices shot up through the roof, and so now we're seeing ourselves sitting on a ton of equity in this house. And so we have a ton of equity in this house, and my family's actually from Hawaii. I have a lot of relatives there. I've gone back there a lot, and so I'm very familiar with the area. And actually, with this new build strategy that I've been working on, I have been exposed to a lot more of the new build process. So what ends up happening in a new build community is that there's actually kind of like a little mini economy that gets built up between supply and demand. Right at the start, you have a lot of supply but very little demand because people might not even know the neighborhood exists, and you have to deal with construction the longest. At the other side, you'll have whole neighborhood's already established, really cool. Everything's probably around it. You don't have to deal with construction, so the demand will be higher, but the price will be higher. So typically, if you can get in the first 10% of any unit in any new build in an appreciating market, like that's almost always a good deal. Blanketed statement, don't trust me on that. But so with that in mind, I actually found a property, a condo in Hawaii where we were in that first 10%. I just randomly stumbled in while I was on vacation. It was walking distance to Ala Moana Mall, and I looked at it. I was kind of shocked how much the HOA was. It was much lower than I expected, and yeah, I was like, oh, this is a unit I want to get it. There was a unit that opened up, and if you see new builds on an apartment building that they're building, you'll see that there's kind of like a semicircle that gets made over the most desirable units.
Mm,
And so there was, because it's like, of course, everyone wants to buy the highest and like the specific penthouse or whatever, right? And so it kind of gets claimed from there.
mhm.
So there was one unit that got dropped randomly in the middle of that semicircle, and the salesperson's like, "Yeah, they just pulled out. They had their period. They didn't want to go through with it. We got them their money back, and they're like, it came up 2 hours ago. It's like, do you want it?" So I was like, "Yeah, I kind of do." And so then I went home, brought the wife back. She finished shopping, brought her back the next day. I ran numbers that night at the hotel bar,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Hey, these numbers actually work." Like, I go look at short-term Airbnb rates, mid-term Airbnb rates, get a plan A, get a plan B,
Mhm.
and then I talked to my agent because I had an agent already in Hawaii that I trusted, and he mentioned to me that those new builds do that same supply demand curve, But that's a really popular thing there because all the units will come on the market at the same time, and I'll basically see my appreciation in another familiar unit. Ironically, this project has two towers, so I got to see my exact copied unit in the other tower. So I got to see what that is, and the appreciation play is there as well because just by doing calling dibs on that unit, we've already gone up over six figures according to what the second unit already sold for, which
Wow,
is mind-boggling to me
that's
because
crazy, man.
we went under with the pretenses of 4%, 3% interest rate, and they just did six figures more
Hmm.
with a 7% interest rate in mind. So I don't, it boggles my mind. But there it's also a lot of people will come in full cash from international or all over the place. When you get to Hawaii, like now you're talking not, it's a little bit stranger of a local market.
Dang, that's crazy, man. And
Yeah.
yeah, so well, we're getting closer to the end of the podcast right now, but if you had three tactical tips, say you had a friend who's also getting interested in real estate, but they're you see them, they're kind of just like, they're reading books, listening to podcasts, they're not there, want to get into it, but they're kind of scared. Like, what would three tactical tips you can give them to get started today?
Yeah, I'd say the first one is define what's good for you. Like, there's a lot of interesting strategies on here. You have syndication yourself,
Hmm.
you have people like me taking it where there's new build versus short term versus you're the syndicator. You can go the whole spectrum.
Yep.
And really, I always challenge people because they ask a lot, what is the investment I should do? What investment should I pick out? Whether that's stocks or real estate or anything. And really, I always say it boils down to you got to figure out what's risk tolerance for you and how involved you want to be. If you can define those two things, you can kind of figure it out. Um, to say risk tolerance,
Hmm.
I say, think if you go to the game, if I told you to flip a coin, I could double or take away your bet, all or nothing.
Hmm.
Uh, what money amount starts to get you scared? And so it's
I
like,
like that. I'm gonna borrow that,
yeah.
man.
Yeah. So someone's like five, a dollar. I tell you, hey, you can pick tails, I'll give you $2 back. I'll double it.
Mhm.
When we get up to $5, you're like, okay, that's a little more exciting. Are you excited or are you scared at that point? And
Mm.
so you can kind of, once you meet enough people and you ask these questions, you kind of get to see more of the gamut. But that's how I always kind of push people when they're like, I don't know how to define this. Um, but then yeah, how involved do you want to be? I think we talked a lot about strategies here today where it's like that criteria. I actually was trying to slide that more involved as I got involved in real estate because I had a background in stocks, even syndication as well, and I was trying to get more hands-on to see if I enjoyed it. So that'd be my first one. I would say the second one is definitely figure out a group of people and surround yourself with people you want to be like. Really do that, whether it's local or digital. Like, people talk a lot about building your team. Really, it's whoever you're going to surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with good people that you admire and you are respectful and you start talking with them, then they will start looping you in, right? And if someone doesn't see you, don't worry about it. If you're like, I really like this person, I tried everything, they're probably busy. Don't take it personally.
Mhm.
Keep going, keep making good connections, keep trying, because that's really, at the end of the day, you don't want an accountability partner neither. You just want to keep a mindset and surround yourself with a mindset of people like, hey, this is possible. We can do this. We all started at this spot. You might see someone with 1,000 doors, but they probably didn't start by going up and picking up a 300 unit apartment building, right? Um, or if they did, good for them. But they probably know somebody else who didn't. So
Right, right.
um, don't look at it that way. And then I think something that's kind of helped me really well is keep your context in check. Because on the counter side of that, there is always surrounding yourself with real estate people, and we already talked about how we can get in our vacuum and really talk all day and jabber about real
I
estate.
got you.
I really appreciate the fact that my wife actually has no interest in real estate. The first property we bought, I was running the numbers, being me, this is the best value, this is the best one for the dollar, and she came and said, no, I don't want that one. Like, this is the one I want over here. And
Mhm.
it's like a $30,000 difference on,
Mhm.
over 30 years. It's not a it turns into like $100 a month. That change in floor plan, I
Mhm.
think every year for the next 2 years, every single neighbor said, I can't believe you got this floor plan. I wanted this floor plan.
Mhm.
And so continuing to challenge yourself and keep that open mind and always say, hey, there's something else. There's another angle I could be learning. There's another a financial thing I could be trying to utilize in my scenario, and really just staying humble. That's been something where I continue to ask dumb questions all the time, and some people think I have no investments. Some people think I have way more investments after talking to me. And,
Mhm.
I think that you can't really control what other people think, but you can always challenge yourself to continue to push your understanding. Yeah.
Awesome, man. And so, Travis, what's the future like for you? Do you plan on doing more new builds? Do you plan on again some bigger properties, or how's it like?
Yeah, so for me, I think full-time real estate is potentially in the future. My
Sweet.
wife jokes, she's like, "This is all you talk about." She's like, "You don't really talk about your software technologies anymore." She's like, "All you do is talk about repairing sinks and floors and
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
like right now I'm building out our upstairs attic storage, and she's like, I've heard you talk more about that than code in the past 2 weeks." So
Oh
um,
man.
whether that's good or bad, it's work-life
Mhm.
balance, that's for sure. So I think full-time real estate it might be in the future. I'm pretty excited about that. I still really like code and everything about it, and I think there's a good mix because I always wanted to go more into leadership with programming, where you have to rely on people more and be communicative. So um, I think that's what the future is kind of looking like there, from a personal what do I do every day hopefully thing. In terms of the investment side, I think on a personal level, I have a lot of appreciation. I have a lot of appreciation plays, and I would like to start working on some cash flow. So my goal for next year is to actually do a non-conventional loan. I want to try to challenge myself to buy a property that works and qualifies based on the actual value of that asset and the rent returns and the amount of income it can generate. And that way I can stop doing conventional loans. I kind of, on a personal level, I kind of feel like they're becoming a crutch for me now with my high income in order to qualify for more homes.
Mhm.
Granted, I am about to hit the year where I've done it for 2 years, and I get all my DTI gets released because now I can count my rental income for my taxes.
Nice.
But I think it's something where like I'm missing deals for that, and that's just where so I think if I can get like a 10 to 25 unit apartment building on a DSCR based loan, I think that would be creme de la creme for me next year. That would be the real icing on the cake. Yeah.
Sweet. Well, listeners, today I feel like today's rundown, like it was a nice high level overview of the big plan of Travis Prim. He's definitely a methodical guy. I'm guessing all engineers are very similar. They love their numbers, they're very methodical, and they move very deliberately. So you want to give you kudos for that, Travis. Even
Thank
in this
you.
even in this past interview, I learned a lot from you, man. That's pretty awesome.
I'm glad. I'm glad we're
Yeah.
sharing the knowledge.
Uh-huh. But so Travis, I guess if people want to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to get in contact?
Yeah. As a follow up to what we were talking about earlier, where I go, I actually got licensed as an active realtor this year as well.
Yeah.
So I am working with clients. If anyone's trying to get into the Austin area or anywhere in Texas, I can help. Um, Anything. I know we talked a lot about investments, but I've also helped a couple people with primaries, and that gives me a whole different sensation where I'm really stoked about working with clients to kind of help them get their next steps in life going.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, if you want to get in touch with me, feel free to. All my socials are at the Prim Group, PRIMM Group, like the candy.
Hmm.
And I also have my website that has all of my socials linked to at www.workwithprim.com. That's always updated. So you'll be able to book a time with me on there if you want to be able to talk about, hey, what does Austin look like? Hey, I'm thinking about moving there. Hey, I want to buy investments there. I'm more than happy to take time out and show you the lay of the land. Yeah, yeah.
Sweet. Well, you guys, yeah, if you guys are thinking about investing or moving to Austin, Travis is your man. I'll be sure to have all of his contact information in the show notes, so feel free to look down there. And Travis, is there any last words you want to give to our listeners today?
Uh, I'd say get involved. Just get out there. Outside of this podcast, start meeting people. That's how you're gonna. That's how if anyone's stuck on analysis paralysis, meet people. That's the fastest way to get the hype going. You can analyze 1,000 properties, and it's good to have that muscle, but you need to have the next muscle of actually taking the step.
Yeah, and then that's a great one. Well, guys,
Yeah.
I hope you got a ton of value out of today's episode. If you heard something today that really resonated, don't be shy. Replay the whole episode, get to know Travis again, get to know his skills, how he's so methodical about everything, and we'll catch you guys next time.